About a week ago, I was scrolling through Twitter as I tend to do a couple times a day, and on my timeline, I came across this tweet that was going viral. Stop forcing students to present in front of the class and give them a choice not to. When I saw this tweet, I really wanted to make a response. The thing is, there's only so much that you can fit into 240 characters, and in general, my Twitter is probably one of the last places anyone would probably expect me to spark some sort of discussion. Frankly, Twitter is also a horrible place to spark discussions in general. So a couple days go by, but this tweet has still been bugging me at the back of my mind, and it was then that I decided that I thought that it would make an interesting topic to bring up in my Panda Talks. I've been wanting to get out of all my music-related content, and I wanted to broaden up to a larger audience, and I thought that despite this controversial tweet, and topic in general that I have gotten so interested in, that it might be a good start. Over the past 24 to 48 hours or so, I've been trying to put together a script and planning out how this video should go, because the last thing I wanted for people was to label me as being completely wrong or insensitive to the topic. So I decided to try and ask numerous people and communities about what they thought about the tweet so that I could approach the topic accordingly. Now, I want to go over some of the responses I got, but I'm going to start off the video with my personal thoughts and analysis of the tweet, the subject matter, and the overall general response from the public. Now, contrary to the title I have chosen for this video, I must say I do not think students should be able to choose to present. Blatantly put, I believe that allowing students to choose would be more damaging than if they didn't have a choice. Now, that would be my opinion if I was subjected to a character count. Because this is a video and I have free reign on the direction of this video, I can go into much more detail and specifics. And as for the author of the original tweet, she also had a lot more to say than what meets the eye, which I will narrate over. Hi, I just wanted to come on here and say that if you know nothing about anxiety, don't reply with ignorant bullshit. If someone is too anxious to present in front of the class, they should be given a choice not to. Mental health is important, it isn't cured by facing your fear. If you're someone who is comfortable enough with public speaking, good for you, go right ahead. But if someone with severe anxiety would rather not to, they shouldn't feel obliged to step out of their comfort zone. For me, it makes my anxiety worse, I start shaking and panicking. And it's completely normal for someone who's anxious. Students should be given the option to present in front of just a teacher, so it's not a huge audience of students that could come and make them nervous, uncomfortable, or even worse, cause them to have a panic attack during class. And I'm saying this based off of personal experiences. It's not like I'm making this shit up. An anxious presenter could cause them to throw off their eye contact or general oral presentation marks, and their grades could drop because they were too anxious. They may have the ability to present formally, and they might have the potential to earn a high grade, but their anxiety might fuck everything up and ruin the entire presentation. A student might also lose hours of sleep the night before because they're overthinking about their oral presentation the next day. So yeah, it is that deep for some students with anxiety. If your mental illness isn't as bad, then you should be grateful, but just know that there are people out there who would feel much more comfortable finding another way to present their work. I should also mention that by anxiety, I mean diagnosed anxiety. If you have been told by a professional that you have anxiety, especially glossophobia, then this is who this tweet is talking about. Alright, so let me unpack what I think about this tweet. If I'm going to be brutally honest, I don't think students should have the choice to present. I believe that the public school system doesn't prepare you for a lot in the real world, but one of the things that seem to be ingrained into us is to practice public speaking. Whether it be in front of an audience, in front of a small group of people, or even in a one-to-one setting, the ability to fluently translate your ideas through presentation is a very important skill. At some points through these tweets, it sounds more like she's coming up with general excuses rather than actual points that can be argued in a debate. She brings up that students shouldn't be obliged to step out of their comfort zone, and that students may lose sleep or marks due to loss of eye contact. Another thing she brings up, which I think is very counterproductive towards any sort of discussion, is that if you don't have any anxiety, then don't reply. I did some research, and according to some sources, the estimated ratio of students that suffer from some sort of mental illness is 1 in 5, which accounts for about 20% of students, which is a lot. That does, however, mean that the other 80% of students who are either undiagnosed or have yet to be diagnosed would be unable to take part in this very important discussion, especially when in her tweet she states that all students should have the choice to present. But there is one very important distinction in her list of tweets that actually changes the discussion immensely, and that is at the very end of her string of tweets that she states any mention of anxiety, stress, or panic is in relation to diagnosed anxiety. Upon rereading the entire string of tweets with this in mind, I have to say that I agree. I personally have never been diagnosed with any sort of mental illness. While I can confidently say that I have felt anxiety and stress, it has never really impeded my learning or my life. That being said, I know from first-hand accounts from my friends and others that suffering from anxiety and having a fear of public speaking, or as she calls it, glossophobia, is a very real reality for some people. She mentioned that students should have the ability to different options of assessment, whether it be presenting one-on-one in front of a teacher or having the teacher assess you more on your content of the presentation rather than the actual execution of the presentation. I have to agree that those are definitely good options, and in this current climate for education where it seems like the expectations for students are rising and mental illness is becoming a huge issue, that teachers should be open to being flexible with students. However, I do not believe these options should be open for all students. I have a friend who I don't talk to much anymore. She had an anxiety disorder, but for the most part was able to push through her presentations. However, it would show in her marks that she would do much poorer in presentations. It wasn't until later on, but eventually she decided to go to visit a doctor and was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Because of the diagnosis, she was able to discuss with her teacher and vice principal on having a revised assessment of a 20-minute seminar that we had to present. And that revision was simply to present one-on-one to the teacher. It definitely helped her too. She got a good mark from what she told me. However, there was a small catch. The doctor didn't actually do anything to officially diagnose her. In most places, there are tests that are run and numerous sessions that a psychologist and their patient would go through to fully and properly diagnose their patient. However, with my friend, the doctor simply wrote up her diagnosis and all was done and long forgotten. The issue of doctors false prescribing people is a completely separate issue to the issue of students presenting, but I did feel like it was something that should be brought up. Anyways, why am I bringing this up? The reason is simply because in some schools or some accommodation programs, they may do a lot more than just make a student present one-on-one. Some may even go as far as completely getting rid of all presentation requirements or changing up a grading style. If these options were open to all students, I think a huge portion of students would see these accommodations as taking the easy way out and would be heavily abused. And with what I mentioned about the doctor, students could go out of their way to fake a diagnosis for these accommodations. On the other side of the argument, there are students, and I know this to be a huge issue in the United States, where healthcare is not free. The students with actual mental illnesses may be unable to acquire a diagnosis, which in turn may very heavily affect their schooling if they don't have access to these accommodations that teachers are open to offering. Even if money isn't an issue, I know from personal experiences that talking about mental illnesses can be difficult, even to a family member, and in some strict households, convincing your parents to see a doctor may not be possible, which in turn again would affect your schooling. Even with all of this talk of accommodations and diagnoses and whatnot, I still believe that students should learn to be pushed out of their comfort zone and should present in front of their classmates. The ability to present yourself and your ideas to people and the public is most of the time a necessary skill for any job, even entry-level jobs. You could be talking one-on-one with a job interviewer trying to sell yourself for a job position. You could be part of a marketing team and required to create a presentation in front of a group of investors. If you want to become a teacher or a professor, you will need to present in front of the class of students every day. Say we're talking minimum wage jobs. Working as a cashier, as a waitress, or as a staff member in any store will require you to talk to people. One of the counter arguments that I hear a lot of is that schools shouldn't need accommodations if they actually prepared their students to present. Obviously, no two schools are alike. Some expect students to know how to present, while other schools actually have dedicated classes or courses that you can take to get better at public speaking. I find that with subjects like English, mathematics, and sciences, students will obviously take time out of their day to do their homework and may even hire a tutor, but with public presentations, it doesn't seem to be the same case and are often put on the back burner to be a later issue. If people decide to stay within their comfort zones and never once present, you're hindering yourself the practice of a vital skill that you need. The point of school is to learn, to practice, and to make mistakes. Now that being said, if you're in high school or university, by that point you really need to make sure that you have some sort of skill or ability to present. I know from some people's experiences, classmates can be a mixed bag. They may make fun of you, or they may not even give a single damn. At the end of the day, your focus is on a proper presentation that makes your teacher or professor happy. After all, how many presentations can you remember from your school? Probably not that many, because as most others, they're either not paying attention or they're too busy thinking of when lunch is coming. I feel like I should reiterate again that if you do not have any sort of ailment, then you should practice and present. If you happen to be part of a group of people where your anxiety is so bad that you cannot function normally on a day-to-day basis, then you need to consider numerous options, including getting diagnosed, switching schooling programs, or acquiring accommodations. Because frankly, while we should help out those in need that are suffering, those who are completely able to perform and present should not be subjected to easier marking schemes and ways out of what is a standard practice and expectation. One thing I heard a lot of is that telling a person with anxiety to face their fears makes it worse, which I feel like I should chime in. It does depend on the person. There is a practice that psychologists perform called exposure therapy, which has been done numerous times to help people either get over their fear or has helped them cope with their fear of social anxiety. The argument that facing your fears doesn't work is for the most part not true. if done correctly. At the end of the day, if there's anything that you can take away from my long ramblings, it's that accommodations and proper schooling for learning how to present would be amazing in a perfect world. But in this case, if accommodations can't be found, then you're just gonna have to deal with it as everyone else does too. Now that was my take on the whole topic. As always, there's a whole other world out there that have their own take on it. When it comes to direct replies within the tweet, I find it very interesting that every single top reply was someone who either disagreed or had a conditional agreement. I scrolled down through so many replies and I could not find a highlighted reply that agreed with the main tweet. So from what I can gather, this tweet may have been largely and simply blindly liked and retweeted, because as much as every student would love to have the option to not represent, it isn't something that's going to be happening anytime soon, and neither does it seem most people expect that to happen. There were a ton of replies as well as from people who happen to also suffer from their own anxiety disorders and stress, and all of them follow a similar structure. While I would hate to present and I would dread and panic, I would make myself present anyways because it would make me better and help me overcome my fears. But I didn't want to stop there. I decided to ask around and asked for people to message me in private their own experiences and opinions related to this tweet, and I got a lot of responses. I even had entire conversations spawn on the topic, and I got to see a lot of insight. But overall, I saw the same results. The people who completely agreed often didn't have that much to add to the topic or to their own propositions of how to fix the situation. And most people either disagreed entirely or acknowledged that though they hate presenting, that it is a huge necessity in life. The biggest consensus that has come from most people I talked to is that teachers and schools wouldn't have to accommodate students if they actually taught them how to present. And if there was a larger focus and push towards becoming good at presenting, then I think if there's any teachers who are watching my video, that this is definitely something you may want to consider. And to anyone who feels anxiety when presenting, I have 2 quotes that 2 different people sent me. You'll worry less about what people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. A quote from Olin Miller. And secondly, I don't think anyone could ever criticize me more severely than the way I viciously criticize myself. The first quote simply means you would care less about yourself if you realize how often people actually cared about you. The fact is, usually they don't. Most people mindlessly watch your presentations, but they don't actually judge, at least harshly. Anyways, this is definitely a much longer video than most of my videos have ever come out to be. I would love to know what you guys think of it. I'll definitely be reading your comments and seeing what you guys have to think about this. I really hope that this video doesn't come off, in any sort of bad light. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment what you think. Comment what I should talk about next. Is this good? Is this bad? Whatever. Anyways, I'll see you guys around for the future, and I'll see you all in the next video.